Hello there, everybody. Whether you're joining live or well, you'll be after the fact. Come on and comment, and interestingly, let me know any of your thoughts on this. So today, what I decided to do is I wanted to go live because I just recently wrote this book, The Art of Self Leadership, and one story that is in the back of my mind is someone who I invited, or someone who was working with me on my team for 3 years, and then I decided to put her, she didn't even know this when I did it. I decided to include her in my book on this point about using your voice, speaking up, and speaking kind of truth to power, speaking up to your boss. And so I wanted to have Ashley, who I think is like this go getter Gen Z person, come on here. So welcome there, Ashley. I'm not sure if you heard my little introduction.
Yes, that is true. I didn't know that was going to be part of the book, but it was a nice surprise.
And I just like the biggest thing is like from the very beginning, I remember kind of. I want to say it may have been within 2 weeks of you starting on my team. I'd say something, and then you'd say, "Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's right," or you'd say, "Well, have you thought about this instead?" And at first, I was like, because it was like it was I wasn't. I didn't think it was rude. I was like, "This is." Wow, this is it kind of took me aback that somebody would do it, and particularly somebody younger, different generation would speak up and say something. And so at some point, I'd get to the point where I was like, if you didn't speak, if we were saying something and I didn't hear you say something different, I'd say, okay, Ashley, so tell me what you're thinking and tell me why this won't work. And I would always do that because I know like you were the person who would always present this counter opinion, this different way of thinking, which to me was refreshing. But at first, it was a little bit. I was like, wow, because not many people do that. So I don't know. I'm so curious. I wanted to bring this up. Like, what is it that makes you, I'm going to be 54 and you're, gosh, in your 20s, and we are different generations. And what makes you have so much of that guts to be able to speak up and kind of speak counter or dissenting opinion in a group or one-on-one when you feel like something isn't quite right?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I think that a lot of it has to do with you. So I have to give a lot of credit to you. And it was definitely, so for the people that don't know, it was my first job out of college. So it was my first like experience in like the corporate world. But anyone that works with Heather, like she is not your stereotypical like sterile corporate leader. She's very warm, she's very nice, she's very caring. And I think that from the very beginning, I think that the lack of experience in the corporate world kind of went in my favor because I was like, oh, well, I feel comfortable. Like, let me just speak up. Whereas I think that other people, maybe if they've had that traumatic experience where they did speak up and they were like automatically shut down, or they had that bad experience with a boss, then they learn, like, oh, let me just shut my mouth and not say anything because I know that there's going to be, negative consequences. Whereas in my experience, I come out of college, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I found the perfect job, perfect boss, like this is so awesome. And I was just given like the space to speak up as my normal self, because in my normal life, I am very much like speak my mind. And so I brought that over into like the professional world. And it was so welcome that I never questioned it. And like you said, after a while you would be like, hey, like, are you sure you don't want to like push back a little bit? Like, and I was like, no, at this time I'm completely on board. And so
I actually agree with you.
well, anyone that has worked with Heather, Heather's brain is just, 24/7 nonstop. So a lot of the things you've got to be like, okay, Heather, hold on, like not right now. Tomorrow, like today, let's focus on this. Which is amazing, and that's what's gotten her to where she is now. Because I mean, to be an entrepreneur and to be in this business, you definitely have to be like a go-getter and like just 24/7 on, and that's definitely Heather. So it's definitely what has gotten her here. But from a work perspective, we got to be like, okay, one thing at a time.
Yeah, and that's the way it has to be at home too, by the way. I mean,
Yeah,
I can tell you, being the person who I learned not to be totally on 24/7. If I'm on, I'm like also on for me. This is something I learned kind of later on in life. I would say late 40s, where I decided to say, "Uh-oh, I'm more important. I got to invest in me, or else I
hmm,
can't be the best entrepreneur, the best mom, the best wife, the best any of those things if I don't learn to lean to myself." So I start off my day with me, right? And I end my day
yeah,
with me, and in between there might be times where I feel completely up to here, and I notice that I have to take deep breaths, go for a walk, peel away for
hmm,
me. So it's but as
yeah,
an entrepreneur, you're right, there is a lot
yeah.
ideating. And so having someone
And
like you helps so much.
yeah. And I know that you speak about this, but like there's no work-life balance. It's just integration. And so when I say 24/7, I really mean that like you would take your kids sometimes on your trips with you. Like I know your husband went with you on a longer trip that you had that was in Europe, I think. And I know you take walks during the day and you have like different blocks during the day for the different things that you can show up for everything in your life. And for those that don't know, Heather has 4 kids, so lots of things going on in Heather's life apart from, all the work stuff and running a business and a company and speaker and constant travel and just so many things. I'm always in awe. I'm like, I don't have kids and I'm like drowning.
Well, I think that, and I think this is kind of a part of it too, right? I think like, as the entrepreneur, having that team, like surrounding yourself with these people, or even if you have your own, you're working in a bigger organization and you have to surround yourself with people who are not yes people, people who get stuff done, people who have like their own independent thinking and thought process, people who feel self-empowered to go like accomplish the things that you all set out to accomplish together. Because if all we're doing is micromanaging every little step, how could I do all the things I do? So I can't do all the things I do and be effective in it if I don't have people like the Ashleys and the Hathaways and the Jens and all the other people that have been on my team in the world. I don't get the opportunity to be that person if I
Yeah,
don't have people like you. Like it's a two-way
yeah,
both ways, right? I think we
yeah.
we are co-collaborating. We have a partnership way of being, and then we both feel successful if something comes from it, right?
Yeah. And the yes man aspect is so important because I think that, especially when you work in a remote setting. So I worked with Heather for 3+ years, completely 100% remote. We only met each other one time in person. And when we met each other, it was like we had just, been working together in person for the last like 10 years. It was so casual and like familiar, but I think that not having yes man around you, especially in a remote setting, is so important because it's so easy to just be with yourself and with your brain and just put out
Mhm.
ideas. And then if you don't have like the feedback of a team around you and, people that will kind of like put up the guardrails in their area of expertise, because you're like the strategic brain up here, but then you have like these arms that are, the things and the people that are helping you get to where you're going. And so I think that having people that aren't afraid to not be yes men around you is so important, especially as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and I just see this in any role. I can think of any role that I've played because I've managed people for 25 years, so been a leader of teams for 25 years. And I remember in each of those roles, each time it was like, once I hired you, well, number one, I made sure I was careful about like who I hired.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure there was value alignment. I wanted to make sure they were people who got stuff done. Like I'm a person who only want to be around people who get stuff done, who are self-empowered, who are self-directed, because otherwise, I got to spend a lot of time telling you all the things, and it's like
Yeah.
I want you to go take risk, and I want people to know. And if you took a risk and it doesn't go quite well, I wanted you to say, "Well, I want both of us to be, oh well, that didn't work that time. Let's go try it again another
Nice.
time." And I think having that way of thinking. When you are a leader of teams is really important because otherwise I feel like we do feel like we are up to here and we can't, there's no way we can handle it all. But if we've released more of it to the team and know that we've hired the right people and we've empowered them to do what they're, then it just makes it so much easier. I just feel like now we're almost just like we're coexisting
Yeah.
in like achieving the thing, and we're kind of like living our own lives, but we have an understanding. I remember mentioned this to you before, but and I mentioned this a lot. There's this book called Co-Founder of LinkedIn, and this book, I mean, I just recommend it to everybody. I really loved it, but it was, and this is probably, I don't know even how many years this came out, maybe 8 to 10 years ago. I don't remember when this came out, but it still applies today. And it's this idea of having like people that you have, doesn't matter if you're in a 20,000, 100,000 person organization, you lead a team of 1,000, doesn't really matter what, small entrepreneur, but you hire these people and you have this understanding when you come in. So you kind of come to like a meeting of the minds when you first come in, where you are talking to you tell the
Hmm.
person, okay, here's what, like, I'm hiring you and here's what I think you are going to like really drive home for us in our company. What do you think? I would love for you to work. And you say, yeah, this sounds right along the lines of my career goals too. And I'd say, well, it's okay. I'm thinking that this may take, a couple years. What do you think? Are you thinking you're on board for that? And they'd say, yeah, I think I could probably do like 18 months or 2 years. Okay, this is kind of how this conversation is going. And then you get to the point, let's say 6 months, and you go, okay, so this is where we're at. And I think we're still growing well, and it's getting closer, closer to us achieving it. Do you still feel like that 18-month mark? So I'm continually touching, being like, where are you? And are you feeling good about it? And is there anything else we can adjust? So I'm constantly, if I'm doing that and you're doing it back to me, now we, again, this alliance is stronger and stronger. And that's what I love about, I feel like that's what we had. And the
Yeah.
way I like to build out teams is like, we have an alliance and we're trying to achieve together. And how much more can you give? And how much more of it do I need from you in particular? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Coexisting in the Trello board, in the Trello universe. Yes, and something that also helps with that is not having a micromanager and having someone that trusts you, because ultimately, if you go through the process, like you said, of hiring someone that you really believe in, you either, you love the way that they think, you think that they're very organized, whatever it is that made them stand out, you have to like put the trust in them too, that they're going to do their job. And I think that's something that we do really well, or we did really well as a team, where it was like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is like the huge project. These are the mini tasks. Like, this is on you. This is on you. This is on you. Clear. Like, this is the date that we're gonna get it done by. And like the expectations were so clear and the communication was so good that it almost made it like impossible to not do well at your job. And then as an employee, you feel good because you feel like you're contributing to, like these bigger projects that you're doing. And I know I've mentioned this before, but especially in a remote setting, in the type of like I'm in a different country, totally isolated from everybody else. That's so important, feeling like, you're contributing to like the overall success to the company. And I can imagine that because the work that you do is so important and like impactful. I can imagine that if I was working for a different type of company, like I don't know, one that makes cups or something, where the where the impact is like not as profound or emotional. I think that that's even more of a setting where in if you're a remote employee, that becomes even more important, of feeling like you're accomplishing your task, of feeling like you're part of this bigger mission of a company, not just the little tasks that you do every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that happen. That mission part, I always find like I find a mission no matter where I work. Like if I'm working with a client, or it doesn't matter if it's a cup company, because in the end, I'm going to find a mission there. I will find that mission and I will speak to that mission, right? Because I feel it's so important. But that's how, for me, I grab onto that. And I think
Yeah.
other people can really do that same thing too. Like, what is the thing that you do every day that's helping the world in a bigger way? And that's also, by the way, the thing that helps me when things get challenging. Which, so let's just be clear about those who are watching now and who will watch later. So Ashley was working with me as an employee for 3 years, and last year got a little rough from my business on the speaking side. I still do much better than the average person. I get that it's all relative. It's a first world problem, and at the end, I looked at my business and I said, okay, I'm going to have to make an adjustment. So Ashley was laid off, and I would say probably within I don't even know, 2 months or something, I reached out to her and said, hey, I need help with with the book and podcast booking. And I was trying to figure a way how to actually continue working. Obviously, I kept my relationship going with her as we went along, because again, she was extremely important, still is very, very important to me, because people who are not yes people, I place a high priority of those kind of people in my life. And so I was like, okay, how do I keep her somehow in here? And I want to continue to support her as she's kind of looking for the next job. And so then while we're doing that, I also referred her to somebody else, and then she's going to do other things. Again, this go-getter person I told you that she is, she found a way around kind of the obstacle that was there. And then now she's working with me even more fully back with me. But it's as if we kind of never ended, because
I
we
know.
just kind of kept the relationship going. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's a
No,
part of
I
this
do.
dynamic.
I do feel that way. And obviously, like I always thought that you were a very caring person, but to be laid off and then have your boss constantly check on you. Like I think that every like 2 or 3 weeks did not go by without Heather checking in on me. And it goes to show how she does not just like speak about these things. She doesn't just go to companies and tell them, just to like make money. Like this is who she is to the core. And I mean, when she laid me off, we were both like crying our eyes out on Zoom. Like
It's like so funny that we're laughing about it now.
I know, and it's
because
such
we
a full
were.
circle moment. It's such a full circle moment because I went from being an employee and also kind of feeling like, okay, I also, not just because of like where the company is headed, but like for my own personal sake, like this was my first job out of college. Like I need to, kind of like go and do something else. And now I'm working with client I'm working with Heather as a client, and she's gotten me more clients, and like I have started my own business almost like thanks to Heather. And so it's so important. I think that a huge lesson for like the people that are listening that are kind of like my age and below is maintaining those relationships with like these good people out in the world. And Heather has been so valuable to me as someone that is, starting off in her corporate career or like professional life. And she has opened the doors for me. She like believed in me before I had any real like experience outside of college. And so it's so important for, I think like it's so important for managers and for leaders, CEOs, bosses to really care about being that caring leader, to like lead themselves. And I know that your last book is really about like leading yourself to be that caring leader, leading yourself to be that better person, better um, employee, better boss. The book is literally for everyone. And so it's so important because that the way that you show up every day will impact your relationships and like the work and your business, and everything is so intertwined. And the success Heather has, a lot of it is, from her personality and her heart and just putting her all into everything that she does.
And for those who are listening now, you go and I don't see any comments, but you can tell it. You can ask questions of Ashley or me as we're having this discussion. This is a live stream, so I'd love to have you engage as much as you need to and as much as you want to. Ask us questions because, as you can see, we're going to be pretty open and raw about it. Because again, I think this for me is like again, it's all full circle. It's all so interesting. I thought I feel like I should be like a social psychologist because for me, like this whole the way this all melded together. So Ashley, she didn't know it, but Ashley is inside my book. Even though we weren't working together for maybe a few months, she ended up being in this Art of Self Leadership book, which I had started before the layoff. Okay. And so I ended up putting in a chapter on kind of the importance of finding your voice for speaking up to countering opinions. And again, the entire time I'm thinking, oh, I still keep maintaining a connection with this young lady who really, I call her a go-getter, but I do think that's true. It's like I'm feeling very confident. When I think of self leadership, she's kind of like one of the images I would think of because it's this person who understands who she is, understands her worth, her value, understands her voice is important, uses her voice very consistently, and just building relationships and keeping that connection. And so I think there's just so much of that. I think there's a lot that we can learn to like Ashley specifically. And I think she's saying even some of it's generational. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about that too. Just how thinking about how much confidence, the worth, I know you said it's about safe space, it's a safety that I created. I totally get that, but it's not all about me because you showed up. Well, within 2 weeks it happened. So I'd like to know what you think, like generationally, like where does this come from?
Yeah, well, I come from a line of strong women. So my mother's a very strong, independent woman. My grandmother was like, kind of like head of household, even though like my grandpa existed, but she was really like the one that took care of everything and everyone. My mom is kind of like that too. So I think that I've grown up and subconsciously it's been, kind of ingrained in my brain, like strong women, and it's all that I've seen. I'm also Dominican. Anyone that knows anything about Dominican women, like they're not very like, subtle or like quiet. We're kind of known for like the opposite. And I have a strong mix because I have very much like the American impact of culture on me, but I still have like my very strong Dominican, like Latina roots in me. So it all and then also I think that, and you and I share this. So Heather's background is much more like I cannot even compare my childhood to hers, but she had a very rough upbringing. And I think that you've also mentioned like you just had something in you that was like, I'm going to be different. I don't know if that's God. I don't know if that's just how my body and brain were put together. Like, I don't know. But something in you just says, I want something different. Like my life, I see my surroundings and I choose to be different. And I was like this from a very early age. I mean, I remember being young and being in situations and maybe like surrounded by things, I would just be like, I don't want this. Like, this isn't, I want something different. Like, I want something better. And I've always had this kind of just like vision of myself and what I want my life to be. And it's always been in like a positive light. And so I think that whenever you have like this very strong and clear understanding of who you are and what your values are, it's easy to just like kind of put your blinders on and keep going in that way. Like, even this job, whenever I started with you, I was looking for a job that was going to be in a small company with a flexible person. I knew I wanted to leave the country for some time, and I wanted a fully remote job that would allow me to do that and move somewhere for a few months. Of course, my few months turned into a few years, but um, even with the job, I think in like putting myself through college, I mean, I think there's just something in you, like your intuition, your I don't know if it's like my grandma prays a lot and it just has me protected. And it's something
Mm,
in you. And you talk about this in the book where part of it is like a logical thing where I've worked on it, I've read books and the type of things that I consume, it's all to be a better person, but then half of it is also like it's just in you. And I don't know what
mm,
that part is, but it's just in you. It's the same way where when you see a kid and you're like, oh, like that person's going to be an athlete. They just have it.
mm. Oh, that's an interesting concept. So this that idea. Well, can we talk about? Oh, is this person born a leader? Oh, is this person born like this way, or is it something in it that's nurture? And I can kind of think back for me. I don't. I think it. I'm not sure about the whole born thing for like born there. I think it came out of the environment. I actually believe that who I am today was as the direct result of the adversity I faced. So the
Hmm.
challenges that I lived in, and I'm the only child, so a lot of it was like I was doing it all by myself. So this like level of self reliance became there, and then at the same time, the things that happen, and when she said rough, like we're gonna put it, I had a two-parent household for like almost 20 years of my life, so it wasn't that rough, but it was just the again, I mentioned in the book about addiction in my home. I mentioned about the things that are related to kind of racial intolerance in my own family. Just very interesting things. And so I did have to, in my mind, work through those a lot by myself. And so all of the but going through that kind of polished me more and
Yeah.
allowed me to be more crystal in what my purpose was. But I think it was based upon nurture. I do believe I'm a very faith focused person, so I do believe that we all have a purpose and we're on this planet. And so I think the things that I went through, I needed to go through to be the person I am today, and I do believe that's true for everyone else. Which so then to that extent, I think that when we're in the middle of it and we're like, this is freaking uncomfortable. I hate this, or why is this happening to me? We need to ask a different question. I think that we're in the middle of it, we need to ask, how can I allow this thing to form me?
Yeah.
How can I grow from this thing? How can I allow this to let me get closer to my purpose? So I think when you're talking about like it's in you, or I have this vision for myself, like that's why the first part of that book is on self understanding. Because I do think that when we
Hmm.
start to do the hard work, because it's hard work, I think it's hard work. I think it's a
Yeah.
lot of painful work when I'm like having you go, write out the things that are your fears, the things that are your limitations. When I am having you do that, I'm asking you to go deep. And it's hard. I've done that work. I'm still doing that work, right? I
Yeah.
haven't arrived. I've not arrived. And I think that's
Yeah,
another
and I
thing.
don't think it ever ends. But even everything that you're saying to kind of counter that a little bit, the choice that you made, even being young, and I was also basically the only child because I'm 13 years older than my siblings. So I mean, I was like already a teenager once they came into the picture. I think that there's a connection between being the only child and having to be kind of like the parent around the parents, or being
Mhm, mhm.
kind of grown up a lot faster than maybe like the kids around you. And it's so funny. One of my best friends, her dad would always joke with me that I was 13 going on 30. And like back then I thought it was so funny, but it really was like that. Like I was a 13-year-old, but I was always so like just clear about what I wanted, and just I acted like an adult, not in like, in the way
Mhm.
of how I carried myself. And I do think that a lot of it has to do with the upbringing and the nurturing, but a lot of people don't have someone to tell them, like, go this way or go that way and do this or do that. And there's something in you that
That's true.
chooses to not, repeat the adversity around you and chooses to be different. So something in you chose to be different than what you
Yep.
saw.
Yep.
No one told you to do
I
it.
think it was the pain. I really do. I think that the pain that I felt, I said to myself, there is no way on God's green earth that I want anyone else to feel this way. So my mission was to try to ensure that other people were skilled up enough, like understood what the pain was, and and had the right skills and mindset to make sure they didn't duplicate some of the pain I had. Like they didn't show the behaviors that were counter.
Mm,
And one of the things I want to say is that like I was loved by both my parents. I was like there was love, so I don't want anybody to be like whoa, 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 cry for me. That's not the point here. The
yeah.
point is I want you to find that there is this, like I say in the book, there is this golden core that's in us. I do believe it's in every single one of us. And
Hmm.
how we let that shine outward is completely up to us. It
Yeah.
really, no one else can stop us from this. It really
Yeah.
can't. Not if we find our core. And I think that's the key, is that I found my thing is like my giftedness, the thing that was given to me, that someone like one of my very, very best friends, Sarah Elkins, kind of said it. And then over those few years to follow it, I discovered it, which was the ability to be both strong and resilient, right? And
And
both
stuff.
compassionate, like
Yeah.
compassionate and all at the same time. So I could be the
Yeah.
same thing. And it's figuring out what your golden core is. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
When we find out what that is, we can lean into it. I think our life is just more fruitful at work, at home, with whomever we're working with. We
Yeah.
can say no when we want to say no. We can say yes when we say yes, because we're super clear about our golden core,
Yeah,
right?
but it takes a certain level of discovering yourself and doing the work and reading the books and watching the videos and listening to the podcast and being open to the feedback. And there's a lot of layers that go into like creating this Heather that's, this optimized Heather where you are now than from where maybe you started and maybe like where I am now and where I'll be in 20 years,
Yep.
because we all have this base. Everyone's base is different. Someone that grew up with no love, with no compassion, with no empathy, their base is, negative. So they have to bring themselves up to zero. But I'm so on board with the idea that it's up to you. And I love that you say no one is coming to save you. Like you've got to do it for yourself. It doesn't matter if you're negative 1,000. Some people have it really, really rough. And sometimes it takes one person more work than the other, but you can't use that as an excuse. And some people have had terrible things happen to them or to their family or whatever, but it happened, and how you react to it is what's in your power. And I love that you focus on that in the book, because you know there is no limit as to, like, what good or bad things can happen to someone. The only thing that you can control is what you do with them.
So true. So true. I think those are the things that people are most inspired by. And I'm inspired by you, young Ashley, because I can, when you say see you in 20 years, and I'm like, holy smokes, I cannot, I mean, I hope I live long enough to see you in 20 years, because I just think that seriously, your level of competence. I mean, I can't even imagine. I think the sky's the limit. And I think that when we're thinking about that next generation, I'm a Gen X, you're Z, and and thinking about, like, I do feel like there's so much parallel and who we are. So, which is why I don't like to put people in buckets, by the way, because I do feel like so many of the things that you love, I love. Like I like remote work and just the independence and
Hmm.
all the things. I'm like, that's the thing. That's the reason why I exited the formal workforce, to have my own business. And then I want other people to have that same level of freedom and empowerment. I do, though. Let me just say this: caring leadership isn't just this soft thing. Like, yes, I care. But like I said, having the ability to be both strong and compassionate, expect results, and show up with care and concern for someone is a learned thing. Like,
Yeah.
yes, a part of that is from that nurturing, the part of my upbringing. I said the adversity that created that person, it created that human, and I just lean into being that human. But I think we can learn it if we want to. And we have to understand that I'm not telling you that you have to be all, oh, I love you, I care, I'm crying all day with all my people. That's not, and that's it. I
Yeah.
expect you to have, like, you have that, and you also are the person that says, okay, uh, this work that you did didn't quite meet what we talked about. So let's talk about what we can do to get you back on track. What can happen that we can actually have you on a better path so we can now produce better work together?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a conversation because I already loved on you. I already showed you how much I'm in your corner. I uplifted you. I was already there when things got rough. So when I have to come to you and say, uh, this wasn't really the right thing, or or how you acted on that call, or whatever it might be, if I have to help you course correct, I'm coming from a place of care. So
Yeah.
caring leadership isn't just like this or this, it's this and this. I have expectations. I want you to be accountable. I'm accountable to you. You're accountable to me. Let's go get shit done. Like, seriously, that's what I'm about. But
Yeah.
you can do both sides.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you said earlier that Sarah Elkins told you that's your golden core, mixing that soft with the hard, and that's, what your whole theme of like all your keynotes, all your books, it all goes down to caring leadership. And the name itself, I mean, leadership by itself, like that you need to have those hard conversations, hard skills, tell people no, tell people yes, lead. And then the caring, like, caring is that softer. When you mix them together, you get what you're saying, the caring leader. And anyone that has worked with Heather, she is very nice, but she expects you to do your work. She is very caring. Like she'll tell you, like, oh, you need to take a day off, no problem. But like tomorrow, let's get back to it. Like like on the Trello board. And so Heather was a very compassionate, very empathetic, very nice with me during, I mean, my grandfather died. That was like a whole process. He was battling with cancer for a long time. And for so many times I had to just like run out of my house, like take him to the hospital. And she was so understanding with all those things. But I also made sure to show up and do my part. Maybe I wasn't doing it, at 8 a.m., but I would do it later in the day, or I would come in earlier the next day to make sure that I was also doing my work. And so I think that that's where when you treat someone with care, they're willing to even like go above and beyond for you because you appreciate that and you respect that they don't have to do that for you, but they're choosing to treat you like, a human, like you say, not just another employee.
I love that. Anybody out there in the world? I see there's some people out there live. I don't know who's out there. You'll tell me at some point. But if you're out there and you're feeling that, like that last thing that she just talked about, just this idea of showing up for compassion when they need you, and when someone needs you, and also at the same time expecting, like, just did you ever have anybody like that you worked with? Are you that person? Do you aspire to be that person? I was talking to a group a couple days ago in New York, and I was saying, like, I talk about this idea of caring. You might think it's about feeling, and it is about producing a feeling in other people by your actions. So it's taking
Mhm.
you from a place of feeling to a place of action, like not just talking about it, but actually doing it. So I say, in my goal is that I don't want you just to be thinking and you're like feeling this caring leadership thing. I want you to embody the caring leadership thing. I want you to be a caring leader, which again means you have clear expectations. You give people guardrails so they're not flailing. You uplift them. You are leading you and taking care of you, right? So there's all these concepts inside of there, and so
Yeah.
it's all the things. And so, are
And
you
if
those? Are you
you
those people?
And if you're not that person, to think about kind of on the other side, I think that's something that happens too, maybe when you work in like a big corporate company. I know it happens in all industries, but when you work in a big company, I think that sometimes the time that it takes to climb that corporate ladder, you kind of forget, like when you were starting off, or maybe I know a lot of people, like, especially like lawyers in those big law, they were treated poorly. So it kind of becomes like the culture where the new people get treated poorly. And it's like, just think about how you felt when someone did that to you and choose to be different and choose to not continue this culture of, treating like the beginning employees or the new employees a certain way because it makes the world of a difference. And if you're not that type of leader, to do the work, read self leadership, and start to recognize. And I think that one of the biggest parts is being open to be like, well, maybe I do need some help in this area, or maybe I'm not being as good as I can be in this certain area. And that's okay. That's part of growing. Part of growing is understanding that, everyone's base is different. One person's going to be a lot more caring than the other. Another person's going to be a lot more organized, but you've got to do the work to get to where you want to go
I
and
love
making it
that.
a priority.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things I think about, I'm going to put this on the screen. I guess Augustin Perez put this on there. I love the bond you've created with each other, the trust, and respect, and it's so true. And I think, like, just know that that takes effort. Like, you have to have a
Yeah.
commitment in your head, like this desire to be this person. You have to have a commitment to kind of be the person consistently. Am I perfect? No. Did I drive her nuts? Yeah. Like the thing is this is not, we're not trying to paint this perfect picture. I'm sure I drove her nuts too. Right. But there's like this balance that's there of like,
Yeah.
how much is, which one was worse or which one was better or whatever. And I think the key
Yeah.
is no matter what I was doing, she knew like there was just so much passion. She knew there was so much
Mhm.
care there. And the other way, when she would say things to me, about like something, an idea I had, which again, I had cockamamie ideas and I still do to this day all the time. And she'd say, I'm not sure you're thinking about that right. I'd love the way she'd say that. Or she'd be like, I don't know. I've seen things differently or whatever. And I thought, okay, let me hear it. Give it to me. Give it to me. Because I
Yeah.
wanted someone to help me fix my thinking. I needed someone to help me just fix it because my thinking would be in a silo. So I needed to get out of the silo. And so I
Yeah.
always wanted to be like, I want people around me who are going to be like, that is stupid.
Maybe
And I
not
don't
in
really
those
care if they
words,
say
but
that. Even if they say
yeah.
it, I don't think that doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't
Yeah.
think you're right. I am completely fine. I'll be like, okay, why is that?
Yeah.
Why is that
Which
doesn't sound right?
which is important to point out that not every single person will be kind of like me, able to speak up and voice their opinions. And for those people, something that you would even do maybe on the days where you felt like I was a little bit more quiet than I would normally be, you would literally in a meeting be like, Ashley, what is your opinion on this? And so it opens it up to where even if you have someone that's very shy or timid, they're going to give their opinion because you're putting them in the spotlight.
Mm,
And
hmm
the more that they do it, the more they'll build up that confidence to speak up to a point where like you and I now can have, an hour long conversation just going back and forth. And there's no really like filter where you feel like, oh, like I might say the wrong thing or like my boss might get upset if I say this thing. And so as you have more and more of those interactions, you build up that confidence and you build the relationship on both ends
Yeah.
where from top down and like bottom up where there's more trust built within the relationship and within the team.
So much. There's so much. We did. I know we are committing to to a two-part series on this because I think there's so much when we think about generations, when we think about remote work, the fact that we've been worked together for over 3 years and you were in another country, and our relation, and you can see that it's our bond is very very strong. So you think about those kinds of things, and then all the freedom to speak up. I think there's an angle I want to pursue on the second part of this discussion, and it is this thing that's happening in our world right now, which is kind of like I'm gonna go ahead and dib this the cancel coddle culture. Okay, so it's this concept of we have over coddled the workforce by executive leaders or people that are in bigger organizations, whatever that you're hearing in the world right now, that we have over coddled and that we need to pull the heck way back and do like the opposite. Get your butt in the seat. I don't care about how you're feeling about this. Who cares about DEI? All the things that we're hearing on the cancel coddle culture front. I want to hear it from your generation. So we're going to put that on to the next part of this, which will be on next week. I believe you said it's going to be February 27th. So we'll do a little promo for
Hmm.
that and let everybody know that. But now, just closing out this segment, though, what for those who are listening now, who might be the ones who they're in the workplace, they're struggling to be the ones to speak up, to feel like they can be the no people, not always the yes people. What might be from your perspective something they can go do for themselves, just like to make it easier to speak up?
Okay, so I have a good example on this. So I obviously no one watching this knows me, but I'll give a little backstory. So I decided to move to the Dominican Republic temporarily, but I've been here now for a few years. And while I've been here, I decided to pursue a master's. I have never, like, I'm fluent in Spanish, but I have never gone to school in Spanish. I knew how to read and write in Spanish, but at a very, like, conversational level. And now I'm doing a master's in Spanish. So the first few times I had to speak up, and, the culture here is like lots of presentation, lots of speaking in front of the crowds. I was so nervous, like, because I was so scared I would say the wrong thing or I would mess up a word. And I think that that's, people get caught up in the feelings of like the anxiety, and I'm so scared and I'm so nervous. And I would literally write out what I was going to say. I would get a Google Doc, write out everything that I was going to say word for word. And I knew exactly what I was going to say. And so then I had it to reference in case I got lost, or if I got too nervous and I needed to just read off the screen. And I think that for someone that is really, really scared of speaking up, something that you can do is literally just write down your thoughts, go to your meeting or go to your Zoom meeting with your notes prepared, get your thoughts ready and organized before you show up. And once you get there, you might not even need the notes, but you have like that security blanket of, I have the notes, I'm ready, I'm prepared. And with time, I don't need to do that anymore. After I did that a few times and I realized, okay, like, I'm fine, like, I know how to speak Spanish, like, I'll be okay. I didn't need it anymore. But that first time, I really felt like, oh my goodness, like, do I even know how to speak Spanish anymore? Like, I don't know. And
Good
so
for
that
you.
really helped me. And so I think that,
Mm.
the biggest thing is find something that helps you, whether that's practicing with someone. You're a public speaker, Heather, but that is one of people's biggest fears, like speaking in front of big groups. And a lot of people have that same anxiety whenever they have to speak in meetings. And so I think that the best thing that you can do is prepare, whatever that means for you, whether that means writing it out, practicing with your husband, practicing with a friend, practicing with your mom. And being prepared will give you that confidence, and with time you won't need it anymore. You'll realize that after a few times you'll be like, oh, I got this.
I see, and preparation is a huge part of this book. But you can see, I'm sure, who are those who are listening now and listen later, you can see why number one, Ashley is still on my team. She never has stopped it in my mind. And why she ended up in the book on using your voice, finding your voice, and like using that to make sure you can kind of change your environment. So it is quite obvious now. So for those who are listening out, share this far and wide. Obviously, you can comment after the fact. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to do this again February 27th, and we're going to be kicking it off on, again, this cancel coddle culture idea that's happening right now in our world. We're going to
Such
talk
a
about
hot
that.
topic.
We're going to talk about cancel culture, cancel coddle, real quick. We're going to talk about it between the two of us. And we'd love to have you all join in. That's why there's a comment section. We want you to join in on
Yeah.
the conversation. Tell us, what are the things that really resonate with you the most? And I just felt very, very passionate about this. I don't even care if no one else joins, to be honest. At some point, it's going to get out to everybody else. I think that we can learn so much from Ashley, from her generation. I think it's just important to get into her head too about what's happening. As someone who, again, it was her first job. Now she's an entrepreneur doing her own thing, and just all the organic things that are coming from this. Because there's things we just have not planned most of this conversation, but I felt like it was so important for you to see what's possible in a fully remote environment with people who see each other as partners in a collaborative environment. So thank you, Ashley, for coming on this one, part
Yes,
one. I will
thank
see you on
you.
part two. See everybody else around too. It was amazing. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.